Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Yo, what's up everyone? Mark Price here at devslopes.com, and we've been making great progress with JavaScript. And today we're going to talk about a collection type called an array. Okay? And arrays are not unique to programming. You know, there are arrays in the world, you know, a collection of things. And we're going to have arrays in pretty much all of our programs that we're ever going to build professionally. That's going to be on the web. You're always going to have arrays in all of your programs. It's almost nearly impossible to work without them. So let's talk about what they are and why they're important. So I'm going to comment this stuff out. Actually, let's just comment it out here. Cool. And we'll go down a little bit just for fun. Okay, we're building an app. Let's say it's a portal
with free
for a teacher at a
version for
school,
non-commercial
and she's
use.
got a list of students she needs to maintain. You know, when Timmy's in the back, pulling on someone's hair, she needs to know how to, give him a bad mark for the day, so the parents can see and they can beat him with a stick. So how do we do that? Well, let me show you the wrong way to build an app like that. We wouldn't want to have a bunch of variables like this where we're like, student1 equals Timmy, var student2 equals Janessa, var student3 equals Arun, and so on and so forth. Especially if we have 30 students or 1 million students, maybe it's for a bunch of schools, and that's not really practical, is it, to do something like that? It doesn't make sense, and it's going to be very hard to distinguish who's in the class. Okay, there's a better way. You know how, like, in those commercials, like, someone's all depressed, like the medicine commercials, and the clouds
Created
are coming
with
in,
free
and,
version
it's
for
like,
non-commercial
now, with
use.
this new pill, there's a better way. That's kind of how it is when you learn new stuff in programming. The clouds of darkness go away. Var. What do you want to call an array? You can call it anything. It's just a variable. So let's call this students. That makes sense. Okay. And to create an array of students, we use these square braces here. And we can now say Timmy, comma, Janessa, comma, Arun. Okay. This is kind of cool. So now we don't even need these here. So we've got a list of students. Okay. And later when you learn about loops, you'll learn how you can actually go through the array and get all the names out as needed. But let's talk about how to get just one or two names out. First things first, let's make sure this is working as expected. So let's say console.log. We're going to put students in here. All right, let me right click this index.html file, show in Finder. I'm going to double click this here, bring it over.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Command-Alt-J or Control-Alt-J for the console. So it printed out, and there's an array, Timmy, Janessa, and Arun. Okay, so it's definitely working. It's printing out the whole array, which is great. So what we want to do now is figure out how to access individual elements. So here we go. So, we got Timmy, okay? And Timmy was really bad today, okay? So we need to put var naughty list, so this is another array, equals, and we're going to make it an empty array, okay? Nothing in it. So Timmy, he pulled on Janessa's hair, and she cried. This is a tough college class, okay? And so what we're going to do is say naughty list dot push, okay? And how do we get Timmy out of that first array? Well, we know he's at index 0, okay? All arrays in programming always start at 0, never at 1, okay? Always start at 0, all right? So if you ever get confused, how long is my array?
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Always remember, it always starts at 0. So naughty list.push, we're going to say students, square braces, 0. So what we're doing here is we're grabbing the array, the students array, and using the square braces, and then we put the index that we want to grab out of it. Of course, Timmy's at index 0, Janessa's at 1, she's the victim, and Arun is at index 2, okay? And if this is confusing to you at all, we could have done this as well. Bad kid equals students 0. So all I did was remove it out of here, and we put it in a variable here called bad kid. But it doesn't make sense to store this variable here because we only need it once right here. Okay, so students 0. So that's how we grab an item out of the list. Okay. And so what we can do is let's console.log our naughty list, and let's see who's in it, if anybody. So let's go find our browser. Minimize this here. There it is.
Created with free
Refresh
version
the
for
page.
non-commercial
Command R,
use.
Control R. And sure enough, Timmy is in the naughty list. So what did we do? We had a list of students called students. It's an array. And we created another array. This time it was empty. And we called it naughty list. And then we pushed Timmy into the naughty list, okay, because he was really bad. Now, Timmy's not that bad of a kid, okay? He's got some behavioral problems, but he also has lots of good things. So, well, Timmy pulled on Janessa's hair. He actually opened the door for Arun. It was really nice to him, you know. And so the teacher's like, well, I think I want to take him off the naughty list. But how do you remove elements out of an array? And it's a little bit of work, okay? There's no remove Timmy in an array type of thing, okay? So we're going to talk about how to remove elements from an array. And this is, you can use this for removing one or more things out of an array. So let's do it now. So we're going to do var index equals
created with free version for non-commercial
naughty
use.
list dot index of, we're calling a function. We haven't really talked about those yet. And we're going to say index of Timmy. Okay, so it's going to go through the list and try and find Timmy. And if it finds it, it's going to give us the index of this person. And then we can use that to remove it from the list. Okay, so if it doesn't find the element, okay, index is going to be -1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say if index is greater than -1, okay, then what do? We're going to say naughty list equals, okay, and then we're going to say naughty list dot splice. Think of splice like cutting, okay. We're going to splice it at the index, and we only want to remove one element, okay. So again, index, this is a variable. It's going to put a number in here, okay.
For
it's going to go through the naughty list, okay, and we use the index of function. This is a special keyword. It's a function of an array, and it's going to search for Timmy. If it finds Timmy, okay, it's going to store what index he's at. So 0, 1, or 2. So we should expect this to actually say, if I print this out here and I print the index, we should expect this to say 0. Let's refresh the page and see. Sure enough, there's 0 right there. Okay, so Timmy's at index 0. And if you don't believe me, you know what we can also do is we can say, just for fun, var index 2 equals students.index of. Let's find Arun. And we would expect index 2, if I print it down here, to be what? Well, 0, 1, 2. So that should be 2. I'm going to save it and refresh. And sure enough, Arun's at 2. Okay? So it's definitely working. It's giving us the proper index, which is great. Okay, so now what we're doing here is we're saying if index is greater than -1. Okay, so let's show it with the wrong thing. So we're going to say we forgot the Y on Timmy. So it's just Tim. Okay. Let me remove that there so we can print the right thing. This should be -1 when I refresh the page. And it is. -1 means it couldn't find it. Okay. So we're making good progress. So let's put the Y back on here. Okay. So if index is greater than -1, so we're running a conditional statement here. If this is greater than this, then do this. So 0 is definitely greater than -1. So what we're doing is we're saying naughty list equals naughty list.splice. Now splice is another function on an array, and it's going to cut it. It's going to find the starting index, and it's going to cut how many spaces. So if I wanted to get rid of 3 elements, I would do a 3. But we just want to get rid of 1. Okay? We want to get rid of Timmy. And it's going to take that and create a new array, okay, and it's going to put it back into the old array. I know that sounds a little bit weird, okay, but the operator is going to start here on the right-hand side. Okay, so it's going to grab the naughty list, which has 1 element in it. It's going to cut this element out, and it's going to give us a new array, and then we're sticking that new array and replacing the old one, okay? So this could also have been something like this. I could have said var new naughty list is an empty array, right? And then I could have said, you know, new naughty list equals that one, and then the old naughty list would actually still be the same. But that doesn't make sense because we want to override it. Okay, so naughty list.splice index and 1. Okay, so we are saying start at 0. 0 is the place we want to start because that's where Timmy is, and we just want to cut Timmy off the naughty list because he's a good kid now. Okay, and so now if we print out, so we'll do something fun here. So we'll print the naughty list after we remove it, and we'll also print it before. Okay, so console.log the naughty list like so. So at this point right here, we should see Timmy
for non-commercial use.
And at this point we should see an empty list. I've saved it here. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. We got, okay, so this first one here has a length of 0, and the second one here, it has Timmy on here. Oh, I know why this looks funky here. I told you the wrong thing. So this is not returning a new array. This is returning the array of the elements we removed. So when we print this up, it's saying, hey, you removed this element, and then it's putting it back in. What we should have done is actually this. We should have not had the equal sign here. Okay, like so, and then that'll actually just change it in place. That's what's going on here. So from the top, var index equals naughty list index of Timmy. So we find the index. Okay, we know it's 0. So at this point, we're going to print the naughty list. Timmy's going to be in there, okay? And then at this point here, we're saying if the index is greater than -1, then let's cut it out of the list right here. So when we print it this time, there will be 0 elements in it. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, and as expected, we've got Timmy here and an empty array right here, okay? So you add by using the push keyword, which we've done here, and you remove by grabbing the index of the element you want to remove and then splicing it. Now, you don't typically do this very often. When you're working with arrays, let me teach you some best practices here. This is across all programming languages. Arrays are linear, okay? If you go through an entire array, it's going from top to bottom, and it could take a very long time. I mean, if you had an array with 1,000,000 elements in it, and you had to get an element that's at 999,999, your program's going to be running for quite some time. And so doing things like this is never usually a good idea. It's going to search through the array until it finds Timmy, and it can be a very slow process. And so as a beginner programmer, Splice, you're going to use it occasionally here and there. As you get more advanced, you're not going to be using arrays and removing things out of them. Arrays will probably more so store data for you than manipulating them over and over again. There's better ways of managing data when you have to keep changing it. So this is good stuff, though. One more thing I want to point out is that the splice command, or the function, splice function, okay, it's not supported in Internet Explorer 7 or 8, if anyone's still using that out there. I mean, people still highly use this function here, and no one seems to care about Internet Explorer 7 or 8 anymore, but just so you know, it doesn't really support it, or it does not support that, I know. So what have we done so far? Okay, we've talked about taking data that is repetitive and making it a little bit less repetitive, okay? We put these students in an array. Now, this could be anything. This could be bank accounts, bank account balances with a bunch of balances on here. Anything you could think of that you could put in a collection should go into this collection. It's an array. And then we create an empty array for the naughty kids, okay? And we put a student in there,
created with
which
free
of course is
version
Timmy.
for non-commercial use.
All right, then we find his index, and then we remove Timmy, and then we print it up. All right. Now, arrays don't have to just store strings. Okay, like I said, it could be bank account balances, like so. So var balances equals, we could say 50.45, or we could say, 4,000.22 or 12. Or if you're a college student, it's probably looking more like this. Okay. You can work with numbers. You can also work with mixed types as well too. We could do something like this. Var person, and we could say John, and then his age is 12, and his country of origin, is USA. Right? Is he cool? True or false? Right? So you can put different data types in there, and if we run a program, we're not going to get any errors or anything. It runs fine. But
created
this is
with
a
free
big
version
no-no.
for non-commercial use.
I'll tell you that right now. There's a better way of working with mixed data types, and that's working with objects, which we have not talked about yet. But never, ever, 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 ever use mixed types of data inside of an array. Always keep an array the same data type. And this is This is really important. This is one of the things where JavaScript is very open and that people are like, oh, it's cool, but this is where it gets nasty, because if you start doing things like this, you don't know what's in the array. If another programmer came on, okay, and was accessing your array from somewhere else, they weren't looking at this code right here, but maybe on a different code file, and they're like, oh, I'm going to grab that array, he may not know that there's strings and that there's numbers and that there's booleans in there. Okay, it's very bad. Very, very, very bad. And so we want to get rid of this. And we also want to be more representative of what's in the data. So, you know, students, that's probably not the best because these are just strings. So maybe this should be student names. So we know that there's going to be names in here. Or balances, you know, that's probably fine because these are numbers, you know, balances. And so student names.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.
This to student names, okay? So be representative of what's actually in there so people can understand it. We've talked about pushing and removing, and there's a lot more you can do with arrays, and we'll dive into that, and we'll be able to loop through them and do other things like that too. So I think this is good for now. There's a lot to take in, but this is good stuff, and it's foundational, and you'll carry this for the rest of your programming career. So that's it for now. Mark Price at devslopes.com. See you later.
Created with free version for non-commercial use.